Hi. Now, the first concept I want to teach you is how to live off less money than you make. This sounds very simple, but it is easy to forget at times that sometimes we spend more money per month than we actually make. For example, if you make $2,000 a month, I suggest that you try to only spend $1,600 a month. The rule of thumb behind this principle is what I like to call the 20% rule. This rule states that you should save at least 20% of each of your paychecks purely into savings. Now, I'm not saying save 20% of that money to go pay bills or save 20% of that money to go pay for food later on. I'm saying 20% of your money you should not touch at all, and it should go into a savings account. This is going to be the start of our emergency fund. We'll get more into that later. Just focus on the 20% rule now. Now, please make a note that I said at least 20%. Now, for those of you that can afford to save more of your income than 20%, I highly recommend that you challenge yourself to do so. In fact, I myself try to save at least 50% of my income. So if I made $2,000 a month, 1,000 of it should be going into my savings. That's my goal for myself, as I try to save 50% of all my own income. Now, you may ask yourself, why would you want to save 20% of your check? That seems a little ridiculous. It seems a little high. Like, some people might put away 5% or $100 or whatever. Well, I say saving 20% is perfect, because if you are going through your life and you are spending all of your check, 100% of your check on something, you are living way beyond your means. In fact, if you're even spending 80%, if you're spending more than 80% of your check on bills, car, rent, anything like that, you're living beyond your means. You need to be saving at least 20% of your money. The idea behind all this is, with that money, with the 20% of each check that you save, you can put this money away into a savings account for in case something happens later on to you. Now, let's say that you were to lose your job. Let's say that you want to go on vacation. Maybe you want to even switch careers. Then you would have some money left over in order to cover your current expenses. You no longer are living paycheck to paycheck if you have savings. If you're living paycheck to paycheck, that means you are spending 100% of your paycheck a month, if not more, if you're charging it to a credit card or some form of loan. Now, if you are to save 20% of your check per month, I just want you to think about this. 20% of your check every month, at the very least. If you saved that 20% 5 times, so you have 20% on this week, 20% on this week, 20% on this week, 20%, 20%. So if you saved that over 5 pay periods, you have an entire paycheck that is just in your savings. You no longer have to worry about if you have to skip a pay period because you go on vacation, or let's say that you work hourly and you didn't get a lot of hours in this next upcoming pay period. That's okay. You have savings. You have savings that can cover your costs and your bills in the meantime. Now, once you've saved up this money, I would suggest that you put this money into a savings account of some sort, someplace where it's safe. Now, I know some of you might say to yourself, oh, well, I have a safe at home. It's like, my money's safe there. No, it's not. Your money's not safe in a place where it can be stolen. It's not safe in a place where your house can catch on fire. It's not safe in a place where it isn't insured. I highly suggest you put your money into a savings account at some sort of financial institution, because it can't be stolen. Even if the building catches on fire or something weird happens, as long as you are saving your money at an FDIC insured bank, as long as the amount's under $250,000, your money is insured. Your money is protected. It also means that if something catastrophic happens to you, it is in a place easily found where you can take the money out and pay for incidental cost. If you get in a car wreck tomorrow and you have $6,000 put into your safe at home and your wife doesn't know the combination to said safe, there's no way for her to get to that $6,000 and to pay that money for any cost that she may need or you may need. That is why I highly suggest a savings account. And if you have a spouse, I suggest putting their name on the account just in case of an emergency that they need to pull it out. Or in other cases, maybe you need to put your family members on there. So your brother, your sister, your mom, your dad, something of that sort. Okay? Now, some of the emergencies that I would say are very useful whenever you have a savings account like this. There are lots of scenarios where emergencies happen, such as you lose your job, your car breaks down, your air conditioner on your apartment or your house goes out, you have a medical emergency of some sort, or you need money for your health insurance deductible. Now, you have the money to pay for these expenses, but having to put it on a credit card or go massively in debt. Because the fact of the matter is, if you put this money on a credit card or you put it on some sort of loan or you're in debt, that means you cannot afford these expenses. And if you can't afford these expenses, they are going to drag your wealth status down. Now, some people may laugh and say that these things are very unlikely to happen. To those of you, I say you're wrong. These things aren't unlikely to happen. In fact, I promise you, these things will eventually happen to you. Something catastrophic will eventually happen to you. I wish it wouldn't, but the fact of life is something will happen to you that's catastrophic. It's Murphy's Law. Okay? Now, there's going to be a time when someone hits your car without insurance. There's going to be a time that your child has to go to the hospital and you got to pay for the health insurance deductible to cover whatever medical procedure they have to go under. There will be a time where your air conditioner will fail to turn on. One of the biggest keys to becoming successful and to becoming wealthy are to stop telling yourself something is unlikely to happen. Instead, you need to prepare for what could happen. That's a big difference. A lot of people will complain and say, oh, well, something is very unlikely to happen. Successful people, millionaires, CEOs, executives, they don't say that, or they don't complain that something isn't going to happen. What they do is they prepare for the worst. And because they prepared for the worst, when the worst happens, they have a plan. They have money in place. They have a strategy. They have insurance. And that is why people that are worth lots and lots of money, when stuff like this happens, they don't go completely broke because of it, because they are prepared. And that is something that you need to replicate for yourself. So, if you're being cynical, look at it this way. If I am completely wrong, let's say nothing catastrophic ever happens in your life, ever, which is almost statistically impossible to happen, but let's say nothing catastrophic ever happens in your life. Well, look at it this way. You have a bunch of money saved up in a savings account, you can go spend it on something you enjoy. Worst case scenario, you saved a bunch of money. What's wrong with that? Now, I personally try to save up enough money in my personal savings to pay for 6 months of expenses. This is expenses including everything from rent, car payments, insurance, food, health insurance, gas money, and other common expenses. Whether you have cable, whether you have Netflix, Hulu, whatever it is, you need to go make a list right now and write down how much is your rent or your mortgage, how much is your car payment, how much is your car insurance, how much is your cell phone bill. Make a list of these things and find the total amount per month that those items are worth. Multiply it by 6. The idea here is that we're going to save enough money for you that if something catastrophic happens and you lose your income source, your company goes out of business, you lose your job, you get laid off, you want to switch careers, guess what? you now have 6 months that you can pay for all of your expenses while you're searching for a new income source. Imagine how stressful it is, and I'm very sorry if this ever happened to any of you, but imagine how stressful it is if any of you have ever lost a job. Very stressful. Not only from emotional perspective, where you were once doing something that you liked or making money and now you aren't, and you're trying to look for something new, trying to find some new income source or some new job that will fulfill your requirements of working and also make you happier, but also provide for your own family. It's very stressful. Now imagine doing that with $0 to your name. Well, I want you now imagine it opposite. I want you to imagine if you lost your job right now. If you lost your job this very second right now. It'd be very stressful, yes. But how much less stressful would it be if you had enough money to take care of all of your bills for 6 months? You're effectively buying yourself 6 months to find your new career or new income source. That makes one heck of a difference. It's a lot less stress on you, it's less stress on your family, and frankly, if you have a family, it's the thing that's responsible because it's insurance that your family can still continue on and you guys can still survive without any help for at least 6 months. And I'm willing to go out there on a limb and say, in 6 months, I think that you could find a career. In 6 months, you could change your living situation, or 6 months, you could find some kind of new income source. The key is, once again, you don't focus on the probability if these things happen. Don't focus on if you lose your job, if your kid goes to the hospital, if your car breaks down. You want to focus on when these things happen. More importantly, not only when these things happen, the most important thing is I want you to plan, what am I going to do if these things happen? How am I going to pay for my rent if I lose my job? How am I going to pay for my insurance deductible if someone hits my car and doesn't have insurance? If you plan for these things right now, you will become successful. Because the matter of fact is, these things will happen to you. The normal and being successful is that when you're normal, you focus on making sure these things don't happen to you. When you're successful, you focus on planning on what you will do if these things happen. And that is where the emergency fund comes into place. Stay tuned.